Welcome to today's episode with me, Johnny Pardo, and today I welcome Steve to the show. I'll quickly introduce Steve, and then we're going to dive into what I'm looking forward to as a very exciting conversation. And Steve is a fellow EMF grad, and I'll touch on what that is in a moment. So, with a proven track record of guiding individuals through life's catastrophic events, whether it's divorce, trauma, identity crisis, and profound loss, Steve helps his clients turn pain into meaning. As a mindset mastery expert and mentor, Steve integrates a scientifically backed framework like the EMF formula and heart math techniques to accelerate deep, lasting transformations. So, like I touched on, Steve is a fellow EMF graduate like myself, and he's done a lot. I can tell with the content. Now, EMF, for anyone who doesn't know, is a program led by former podcast guest, actually Peter Sage, great expert in the personal growth space. One of probably the most powerful personal growth transformation program I've been through that really tackles multiple areas of your life and helping you not just go through the mass of like fighting everything to get what you want, but very much taking a different approach to life and moving in a more flow but enjoyable process, I would say. And Steve's very much a fellow graduate of that. So yeah, Steve, you're obviously, well, welcome, first of all. You're obviously someone who likes to help people, sounds like, really wants to guide people, and helping people in particular through catastrophic events, sounds like all sorts. Was there an event in your life that really you moved through, or maybe there are multiple, that really got you driven to help people with such events?
Well, Johnny, my story started in 2018. I was diagnosed with rheumatoid arthritis, and that was, I called it a blessing in disguise, where going through that initial physical pain, going through that inflammation was the shift that I needed to be able to first admit that I was lost as a person, because before I was definitely more ignorant, definitely more closed-minded. But not only that, but also admit to myself that I needed help to change. And that's what I think sometimes we disallow ourselves, is to ask for help.
Hmm.
And then not only ask for help, but ask for help with people that have walked the path as well. That stepping stone was the trajectory shift that brought me on a new path. You know, COVID and the pandemic, for everybody has their own stories, but where my darkest cave hit was, I realized that my wife and I were not on the same path 2 years later. And it's not because I didn't want her to change. I had to accept the fact that I can't change people that don't want to change. Right. And from that step, I just decided, my instincts have been telling me it's time to move on. You can't do this anymore. Everybody says there's a breaking point. Enough is enough. It's time to let go and move on. Well, I did. Unfortunately, my ex-wife didn't take it so well. Months after I asked for separation, it led her down her journey where she went on a power trip and she called the police on me to have me arrested, therefore telling them that I beat her and I beat the kids to get control of the house and the money and all that. Things led down an even worse downward spiral when my mom got involved into this scenario. And my mom ended up taking the way my ex was handling this situation, not only the divorce but the situation, harder than I was. This happened in May 2020. By the end of 2020, we found out that my mom had stage 4. So that led me to the next level of, dealing with what to do in a state where my mom wasn't strong enough to hold on. Unfortunately, she wasn't able to hold on much longer. By that July, my mom had passed. So coming out of that, definitely still in survival mode to a certain degree. I was in the last stage of fighting for custody from the rights to have shared custody of my kids because, again, my ex-wife unfortunately was at a stage where she was still on a power trip and she didn't want to let go of that. So I did what I had to do to fight to get my rights to be with my sons, but ultimately leaving me completely depleted by the end of by the end of the year of 2021. And from there, coming out of my darkest cave was when, you know, I always had the belief that brighter days were ahead. And starting 2022, that was the intention. Walk a path where, only brighter days are coming ahead. And, that's where my journey led me to Peter's work, led me to going through the EMF program, got inspired to not only do the program but want to create change and follow Peter's mission to also raise global consciousness all over the world. And that's been the game since. So even though my darkest times were difficult, I never want to be perceived as the victim because that's not the game I want to play. But I just want to share what
Mm,
happened to me because I know there's always worse out there. You know what I mean?
mm. No, I appreciate that, Steve, and you sharing your story behind that. And yeah, some quite like significant events there, like from all sorts of angles, it sounds like. Um, and for you, like, sounded like it was you were in quite like a dark place, but you decided like 2022, coming out at the end of 2021, that you wanted to walk on this path, keep going, and then develop into a more lighter place. Was there what was there anything that kept you out of maybe some of those darker places where maybe you could have slipped into the victim mentality and complained? Was there anything that helped you keep going, or was it any kind of like practices that really help you?
You know, in that period of my life, I had gotten rid of a lot of people
Mm,
that were just, let's use the word toxic, but that were just, we weren't serving each other anymore in that relationship. Friends, close people, acquaintances that just we weren't a fit anymore. So the people that surrounded me were a tremendous support.
mm,
But we have an understanding and we were taught that, environment beats will every time over time.
mm,
So that foundation that I had was definitely key to, let's say, alleviate some of that frustration, that anxiety to make me survive through that dark period, right? Crawling out of that darkest cave that I call. But, I believe that the most important diet isn't the food that we put into our body, but it's the thoughts that we have and it's the words that we tell ourselves, right? Our self-talk is very, very important. And, me practicing that throughout many, many years prior, I've been a personal growth enthusiast since early 2010s, I'd say maybe 2011, 2012.
mm,
Um, the little tools that I used allowed me to stay more on the positive side, even though I was still in my darkest cave in that time.
mm. I like what you said about like the environment, and that's a really, really powerful one. And I know what Peter talks about with the the analogy of if you'd like go to the gym every day, you're standing around the gym and like a load of healthy people, you're going to adapt to that. But if you're like hanging out with people in like McDonald's every day, you're going to like adapt to that as well. And the same applies to your mentally as well. He always talks about like what you're hanging out with, what your environment is. So it sounds like that was a big part for you, just becoming aware and then over time removing maybe people who weren't without any judgment needed for your life, but perhaps were like going a different direction.
Yeah, but it also starts within, right? And the mind is like a muscle. It gets stronger when you embrace challenges, whether it's a negative or positive challenge, just like going to the gym. If you don't exercise your mind, you can't assess the difference between, good things that you have to implement into your life and things that you need to take out. And with this practice of always looking and assessing the difference, and then you apply the things that add more to you. And then you also decide to move away from the things that don't serve you. That's also like a very, very important thing of, a basic fundamental, I believe, in your mindset to be able to assess.
Mm. Mm. Yeah, exercising. Yeah, I always think about, for me personally, I always think about like the physical gym, like even the workout before this. That's something to do to maintain the physical body. There's also the mental gym. Might have been something I heard from Peter actually. But yeah, you're always working, you're always developing your muscle, and it's never ending. It's always a muscle to develop. So yeah, like that you touched on that about like the exercise. I wanted to touch a little bit on um, other people that may have potential to, because a lot of time people really felt like they've been done wrong and they're really angry at someone, and they can hold it in their body and their mind for a very, very long time. And Steve, from what I perceive, my perception of that is like it was quite a harsh situation from what someone else did. Was there anything that allowed you to release that? I'm just asking because a lot of us can hold on to resentment and frustration from other people. So maybe the individual who's holding on to resentment, frustration from someone else, where can they begin to kind of release that maybe?
The first thing is this emotional struggle that we have with ourselves. We
Mm,
create our own attachment to events.
mm,
And, ultimately, when you put yourself at a different perspective and you take yourself away from the situation, ultimately, an event is just an event.
mm.
You're from England, and I'm sure you're a big football fan.
Oh yeah.
Uh, let's do a little exercise together about perception.
Mm.
Who's your favorite player?
My favorite player would probably be Ronaldo in the world.
All right, Cristiano Ronaldo,
Mm,
one of my favorites as well, right? So let's say Cristiano's on the middle of the field and he gets injured.
mm.
Now, what's the perception of Cristiano in the stadium as he's getting injured? What do you think he's feeling at that moment?
He tends to roll into tears or get upset because frustrated because he's not doing what he loves in those moments or not able to
Exactly.
continue. Yeah.
Yeah, like he has his moment because he has perception because he's emotionally attached because
Mm,
he's part of that event right now. He's the one that got injured. But now let's switch the perspective a little bit. Let's go onto the bench where the manager or the coach, the head coach is sitting. What's his perception on what's happening in the event right now?
he's probably also a little bit gutted, but probably not the same emotional intensity that his star player's injured.
So again, you, now you're looking at two different perceptions. Let's
Mm,
go a little bit. Let's go a little bit higher into the stadium. Now you have fans. You have the Cristiano Ronaldo lovers, and you have his haters.
mm,
They're gonna have two perceptions too of what's
absolutely.
happening in that event, right? Let's go even higher. What is the GM or the owner of the team thinking? Again, a different perception.
Mm,
Now, everybody in the stadium is attached emotionally.
mm,
Now, the exercise that I teach, and this is a simple exercise, and we're doing this live, is let's take ourselves away emotionally and let's go all the way into the sky. And
mm.
let's be the helicopter taking pictures of the event. What's your perception of the helicopter now looking over a stadium of 70,000 fans and 20 players on the field with hundreds of people of the media and everything else that's happening in that stadium? What do you think from there?
I mean, from the helicopter, and I love that exercise. Been going for it recently, but yeah, and you going from the helicopter, it's going to be a bit more neutral. There's not so much emotional attachment. It's like literally seeing it as more of an event and reporting on it.
Exactly, right?
Mm,
So I'll give you the example of my mom passing away.
mm,
Um, it took me a long time. For 3 months, I was definitely lost, and I didn't expect that to happen. Now, there's an emotional there's a biological connection with our mothers
sure.
that sometimes we don't understand, and I went through that process. But to let go of the grieving of let's say feeling alone, feeling like I was left behind, I had to use that analogy. That an event is just an event and perceive it at a higher level.
Mm,
That, you know what? I cannot create my movie, my scene, as I have to continue my life in the perspective of Cristiano Ronaldo and be in that victim mode. I have to understand that there's a higher purpose in everything. And, unfortunately, that was my mom's time to leave this earth. And I'm here and I still have a life to continue. But we hold sometimes with a death grip, an emotional attachment to events that ultimately don't serve us. And this is my belief. And I believe every event that happens in our life, whether it's an extreme low or an extreme high, is there to teach us a lesson about what's the next steps moving forward.
mm,
Now, I believe it's our responsibility to be aware. And that's the part of the journey I think that we're on in life, to recognize these signs. And again, I'm the first one to say before 2018, I was completely sleeping away. I was busy being busy, chasing money, creating businesses, trying to make money, not in touch with myself, not in touch with my faith, just running basis, running that led me to my burnout that happened in 2018. To going through that trauma that shook me to my core, but also that's when I realized, okay, it's time now. I got to do things differently. It's not working the way I'm doing it for the first 38 years of my life.
mm,
But 7 years later, now we're in 2025. I'm showing people through my experiences that they can do it too.
mm. Look at the event and the meanings, and yeah, that's a really powerful example there with the Ronaldo one, and then you used it for your mum, and it's not about like there's going to be like no emotion because of course there is, right?
100%.
It's just and Peters talks about like different examples. Like he was given, I was just listening the other day. He was given like one of like the extreme tests you're going to get. I think of a former partner who was abused and raped by two guys, and he had to really do a lot of work. And there's going to be things that are going to be very challenging, like how I perceive your situation. That's going to be one of the harder assignments we could be given, right, as parents. But it's really it's a really useful example when maybe we're frustrated with our boss at work, or like maybe there's a kind of a falling out. It's not dismissing it, but looking at it as in I've decided the meaning and I've got opportunity to look at it a different way. I really like what you said there.
You know, Again, it's about changing that whatever disturbance comes at you, whatever provocation comes at you, whatever challenge comes at you. Okay, this is what's coming at me. Take the time instead of reacting emotionally right away. It's okay to feel the experience of life is going through the experience of the emotional of the act of the experience, if that makes sense.
Mm,
But also taking the time just to say, okay, if I was to look at it in somebody else's eyes or in a higher perspective, in the helicopter perspective of this event that's going on, what's the best way I could handle it instead of just reacting emotionally, you know? And again, I was that guy that was instant reaction, not dealing with the emotion, suppressing it, and then impact. But what does that do? it just creates a bigger negative energy that just continues to expand.
Mm.
But what we've been taught is, at least if you could figure out to get to a place of neutrality where you're able to step into yourself and say, you know what? Okay, this is the challenge. What do I got to do to move on to the next stage, to get to a better place or get to a place that I want to go and not just fall into the trap of either suppressing it or avoiding it because that doesn't serve us in the long term. And specifically as men, right? Generationally, we've been taught to not show emotion, to bottle it up, to not feel.
Mm.
But I know through my experiences that led me to the provocations that I would react aggressively through anger, but using anger in the wrong element. Because every emotion is meant to be felt, but it's how we react and how we respond allows us to grow more maturely into our own selves.
Mm.
We're all immature. We're all born immature, but we have to work at the emotional experiences to develop maturity, to become more balanced, to understand that we all have a dark side and it's a part of us. It's not us, it's not meant for us to hide from it, but it's meant from us to learn from it and use it when it's necessary, but also learn how to walk into our light. And that's what we fear the most, is to be able to walk into our light.
And what do you think stops us going into our light? What do you think that fear is?
Um, there's two powerful forces. The nervous system is wired for comfort,
Mm.
that's triggered by our thoughts, but our soul is wired for growth and just wants to expand. And it's the fight between the soul and the ego. And again, the ego is not a bad thing, and it's not something that we need to destroy. It's something that we need to learn, but also realize that the ego hides within itself. But
Mm.
you only learn this by going through and living through the experience emotionally. Everything I did in my life, I used to suppress things, but not feel right inside of me to a point that even I could say that I in my late 30s, just before I went through that burnout and I was diagnosed with rheumatoid arthritis. I could even say that I felt dead inside. I couldn't feel anything. I had a hard time feeling emotions. I didn't know what love was anymore. I had no perception of it. So, when you do the work because that's what you think you need for yourself, creating change starts with only one shift, 1 degree. But that shift over time brings you to a toward completely different trajectory.
Mm. It's one little turn can make a big impact. Just not it's not immediate. That's where we kind of can be conditioned to think like that instant argument get instant results, but it's not. But it's like the oil rig example when you're slowly turning. I like that. And I know we're conditioned a lot of the time. Well, my perception would be we're conditioned a lot of the time to feel like there should be an instant change, but there's not. It's just that little monumental shift over time, right? I like that.
Micro marginal improvements makes the difference between a Cristiano Ronaldo and a second tier player,
Mm,
a gold medalist winner and somebody that finishes 10th. It's marginal improvements. But the thing is we're also wired that we want instant gratification. I want everything now. When's it happening? I want it now. It doesn't happen that way. But the thing is again, I just want to be the example of by telling you where I came from that I felt nothing. And now I'm able to teach other people how to do it for themselves. It just takes time and effort
mm,
and the
inconsistent.
willingness to do it.
A willingness to do the work and go through the dark and the light that you've done here. I want to touch on something separate, Steve. You do heart math, and I know that's one of your tools. Could you share a little bit about what that is and how it's beneficial for people?
So again, I'm not an expert in explaining it. I use the tool for its benefits. I think Einstein says something like, "If you can't say it simply, you can't say. If you can't say it simply, don't say it at all." So I'm not gonna go into deep details, but what the tool is basically putting you in alignment, in a coherent alignment, connecting your mind and your heart to fall into a space of alignment. And that's when human beings fall into who they are supposed to be. It's not an easy exercise, but it's the same exercise like your mindset. It's like a muscle. The more you work at it, the more you get to learn about yourself, the more you improve on your state and the being that you are. Now, what I love the science of any aspect when it comes to comparing it to spirituality. So what the heart math does for me and what I teach, my students with as well is to use it to allow yourself to raise your awareness and to put yourself in coherence. And what that does is it helps you to lower the noise, right? There's noise around us constantly.
Mm.
Constant noise,
Info, info,
whether
info.
it's yeah, family, whether it's social media, whether it's work, whatever. We're just constantly bombarded with information. And by taking, that 15, 20 minutes, I do it in the middle of the day to realign myself in that specific time. But what it allows me to, and the way, and the purpose that I use it for is to allow me to attach myself to gratitude. When you practice, gratitude is one of the highest vibrations. It's not an emotion. Gratitude is a vibration. The highest vibration that I understand is unconditional love. Now, humans we don't have a real deep understanding, and sometimes the ego might get in the way of what that is. And I still truly don't believe that I understand what unconditional love is. I know how to give unconditional love to my children, but to be able to understand it, to be able to give it to just anybody, I think we still work under the presumption of having conditions and when we love somebody. And it's more like of a trade-off. But when we attach to gratitude, it's not as high, but still an equally high vibration to shift your state out of anxiety, out of overwhelm, out of, what we understand to be into the to me or by me mentality. And the more I practice using the heart math, I'm just able to be in a state of being where I want to be, whether that's neutrality, whether I need to, put an effort in a project that I'm working on, whether it means to be centered in my own peace, aligning the heart center and the thinking center just allows us to be, if that makes sense.
Mm. I like it. 15 like to 20 minutes. So sort of like 15 to 20 minutes, you're aligning yourself to that vibration of gratitude each day. Is
And
that right?
practicing breathing techniques, right? Just aligning yourself to hold yourself in that coherence. And what the heart math does is it measures you. It measures your heartbeat. You put it, you attach it to your ear and just pin it to where your heart is. And it just gives you that metronome of a frequency of breathing that you should be doing. And then it just rates you on where your heart um, beats and where your coherence level is at. And the thing is also learning that it's an exercise and it's not about being perfect. And just like life is always going up and down, while your coherence is also going up and down. But it's a question of, I what I've been practicing is trying to get it from the bottom and, learning that the bends are part of the game, but trying to get it to the highest point as a challenge instead of trying to, no, I gotta do this, I gotta force, nah, oh, why, like we got to give ourselves more grace sometimes, a lot of times I would say, and be less hard and just allow to do the work to help you grow and evolve in where you want to go.
Mm. Yeah, it's easy to beat ourselves up. That's a common one. I've certainly been guilty of many, many times. And I know the listener may resonate as well. Many people I've worked with and coached with definitely resonate with the beat yourself up. It's always that rush to get to the end, and it's like, got to achieve, don't do it, beat ourselves up. And on that note, you had touched on the to me and by me mentality. Could you, yeah, tell us a little bit about that? I know myself, I've got a certain understanding around that, but maybe really useful for the listener and how that to me and by me help you with your life.
So, after my wife took the decisions that she did, I was fascinated to understand why she was doing what she was doing, because I had no deep understanding of human behavior. And you know I was taught, this map of consciousness where, we all fall on different levels of awareness, different levels of consciousness. And it starts at the lowest level where, we hold on to a lot of negative emotions. The two lowest are being guilt and shame, and you know society just keeps us there, right? They teach us, oh my god, don't do this, oh, you should feel guilty for doing that, and we just fall into that environment on a regular basis. And it leads you up to a place of even pride, where pride is not the highest vibration that you want to be in terms of your evolution, but it's still a place that we visit, but we shouldn't attach ourselves to always being proud of something. We should use it as a propeller to higher levels of greatness. So it starts at the bottom level where we call it everything happens to me. That's the traditional victim mode, the victim mentality. And we've all been in these states at some point of our lives.
Mm.
It's just sometimes that's all we understand. And the environment that we grew up in basically programmed us to stay in that mentality. The second stage that we could propel ourselves to is called the by me stage. So everything happens by me, where I'm forcing things in life. And here's where we're using tools and facets in our outer world, in the space that we use with our five physical elements, and we make things happen for us, but everything happens by me. And there's a huge understanding, that needs to be learned. And the difference is the power of accepting things versus the force of resisting things. And even in high levels of by me, you're still forcing things in your life because you don't have that understanding of how we truly operate, which is through the metaphysical world.
Hmm.
And leading towards the flow state that everybody talks about, a level of through me, is getting in touch with what is going on, understanding and working your inner world, touching that intuitive side, the instinctual side, the feelings, and allowing yourself to learn and grow from that aspect besides just a critical level of thinking. This, in my perception, is how you start growing the muscle of through me and living in what I believe is true power. And Tony Robbins also taught us that, how did he word it again? Something in the sense of
Like, yeah, life is always happening for me, not to me. I
not
think
only that,
that's
but
it.
like,
Or another one.
yeah, there was something else that I wanted to bring up, but it just sort of slipped me right now. It'll come to me, but life is in direct proportion to the amount to your willingness to serve. But that's something else. There's something else that I want to bring up, but it just
The
slipped my mind.
uncertainty, was it? The amount of uncertainty, your willingness to live with. Maybe another
No,
one.
disappeared.
We
It
go around the
disappeared.
tables with these. Okay.
Yeah. So again, the education that we're taught through the EMF system is that truly understanding a life of dealing with the inner stuff that happens, but then also getting to a place where it can serve you where you want to bring your life towards instead of always trying to force things, if that makes sense.
Yeah. I like Peter's example. It's like um he's like someone's like, oh, there's a secret door through this way, and it's like, oh no, I'm gonna work really hard and then fight this whole route because that's the way it's meant to be. It's like there's a shortcut right here. That mentality, it makes me laugh, some of those examples, but it's so true. It's quite funny. Yeah.
That's exactly how I used to be. That was my way of doing things. Just put your head down, go to work. Doesn't matter. Just force your way through, right? Just exhausts you, burns you out, burns you out. And there's a different way. There is a different way.
Mm, I like that. Thanks, Steve, on that one. So yeah, Steve, uh, obviously you provide like support to people through going from like transforming their pain into a different kind of like meaning. I know you're doing a lot of work in the world to do that, and you're spreading Peter's message as well. Just before we close off today, is there maybe a final point you wanted to really like highlight that maybe we've talked about today? And also for the listener, if they want to get in touch with you, find out more about your work, see what's going on, more in your world, where can they find you?
Final message. You know, again, I just share my story so I could be an inspiration for others to also realize that they could do it for themselves as well. Sometimes I meet people and they perceive me of what they see now, but don't understand the journey that I've been on to get to where I am. And that's just the word and the light that I want to spread is everybody is on a journey and we all go through traumas, but it's understanding that those traumas are just a setback. You have the opportunity for any comeback that you want to create in your life, any triumph you want to come into your life. We use everybody fears catastrophic life events. Uh, the experience is part of the journey of living. And, I always say that there's always worse out there. And it's just realizing that sometimes we just get lost within ourselves because of the limitations and the limiting beliefs that we have. But once you understand that there's an infinite amount of possibilities to create whatever you want in your immediate future. It's there for us to take. The sad part is we hold on to the past,
Mm,
and it just drains us, therefore taking us away from the focus of where we need to be. You know what I mean?
yeah.
So again, that's just the way that I see things in my perspective, by the life lessons that I've learned. And when I mentor people, I just explain to them, like, listen, this is my journey. If I can do it, I know you can. I didn't do it alone. So I suggest that you try not to, because you are going to force yourself into a place where might not lead you towards where you're looking to. So I'm a big believer in mentorship and
Mm,
coaching and different experience and teachers that give us that life experience to be able to reflect with on a certain level.
absolutely.
Because all I want to be is the reflection of your own greatness. Because that's the potential that we all have. Where can you find me? Pretty simple on my website, stevefurtado.com. That's Steve at Steve Furtado, all in one word.com. And you can find me all the major socials. Facebook and LinkedIn are my biggest social media platforms right now, which is life shift underscore with SF, my initials. And if there's any value that I can offer to anybody, that's what I'm here to do. And I just
Amazing.
really, Johnny, I just want to really say that I'm in absolute appreciation of giving me this time to have this conversation. Like the level of understanding, just going back talking about the journey that we've been on, same journey but separate levels of awareness. Just I love that I'm able to resonate and you have that understanding of what I'm talking about. So thank you again.
No, I appreciate you. No, it's beautiful, beautiful transformation that you've been through, and I always believe we're always going through transformation, through life, and being able to share your journey has really been a privilege for me to hear today as well. So thank you, Steve, for coming on today, and we'll be sure to link all your places where the listener can get in touch in the show notes below as well.
Thank you, brother.
So that concludes our episode for today. And remember to lead with your heart and not with fear.